Hello everyone, it's Tsukasa. Welcome back to Cube World, this awesome new voxel-based, infinitely open world sandbox RPG. It has recently gone into open alpha, and these are alpha tutorials that I'm making with the early alpha build. As such, they're subject to change and might be completely different depending on when you're watching these. Hopefully it is still relevant though, because this is the second episode in my tips and tricks tutorial, just the facts edition. I'm making a bit shorter episodes that are focused on a specific topic in each episode, and in the episode I'm going to be giving you just the facts you need to know about that topic, as well as some neat tips and tricks I figured out along the way that regard to that topic that hopefully will help you out as well. In this episode, we are going to be talking about some of the things you need to be keeping your eye out for as you adventure along and make your way to the city. As I said in the last episode, that should be your primary goal, make your way up to the city. Because there are some neat things there, like the NPC vendors. You can kind of make a base out of this for early on. The monsters on the outskirts and ones that you'll find near the city tend to be a little bit easier to manage at your newbie rank nothingness. As well, you've got inns on the outskirts of the city, and the crafting stations are located in the city. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here in this episode. The things you want to keep an eye out for and look for as you make your way towards the city are the resources that you need for crafting, some of which are exceedingly important and can be very helpful early on in the game. Now, first up, there are two different types of resources that are littered about the world. We have loose resources that are just on the ground that you can pick up, and we have what I call resource nodes. Now, resource nodes are resources that are in a node that you have to destroy the node and resources pop out. There are a couple of ways to differentiate these resources, and let me tell you some of the tricks I've found to discern where these nodes and resources are. First up, if you notice this little plant over here, it looks kind of like a bush with like two twigs and looks like a spider web in the middle. If you mouse over it, you'll see like a hit point bar show up and a name. It's called Scrub. This is a resource node. Now, its name and hit point bar only show up whenever I mouse over it. It should be noted that NPCs and mobs also work the same way. Their name and hit point bar only show up if you have your crosshairs over them. Now, there is a way around this. I personally hate that method. I would prefer to have the hit point bar and the name above them at all times, so they're easy to differentiate at a distance and all of that. There's a way to do that. There's a toggle button by hitting the V button. If you hit V, and voila, the name and hit point bar is over it at all times without me having to crosshair over it. So, I would highly recommend you turn that toggle on with the V button. It will also make it easier to differentiate nasty monsters at a distance. We'll cover more of that in the next episode, though. For now, though, let's talk about these resource nodes. This is a scrub, and so you might say, how do I harvest this resource node? Well, it's got a hit point bar, so all you gotta do to harvest it is take its hit points away by using whatever means you have at hand, whether that be your sword or a spell or whatnot. You don't need any silly tool like Minecraft. You don't need a sickle or an axe or nothing like that to pick up these sort of overworld resource nodes. So you just beat it up. And now that its hit points are gone, a couple of resources pop out. For the scrub, it drops cobweb. As you can see in the bottom right corner, there is a big box window with the name cobweb and a picture of the item. Scrubs always drop these cobwebs. And you might be saying, okay, I see them on the ground, but why am I not looting them? What's going on here? Well, this game, currently in this build at least, does not have an auto-loot function. You have to manually loot every item. So, how you loot things is you push the loot key, which is E. And every piece of item you want to loot, you have to hit the E key for each one. So I got two items here. I hit E once, it picks up the first one. I hit E the second time, it picks up the second one. And you notice that box in the bottom right is now gone because there's no more loot in the general vicinity for me to pick up. Now that is a really good indicator. because also not only does this the same rule apply with the resource nodes, it also applies with loot that comes from monsters that you kill. So, as I said, game's got a lot of RPG elements, so if you kill a monster, not only you get XP, but it also has a chance to drop loot. It could drop weapons, armor, coins. It could drop all three. Let's say it drops a sword, a piece of armor, and some coins. Now, you gotta pick up each one individually. So you gotta hit the E button 3 times to loot each one. A good way to tell if there's still loot in the area is just look for that thing in the bottom right. If that big box is there, you need to hit the E button again. A good rule of thumb too is every time you kill something, just spam the E button several times. Why not? Just spam it a couple of times, and if there's nothing down there in the bottom right, no big box, time to move on. You got all the loot. Another thing that box in the bottom corner is very, very useful for are the free range resources that are not part of nodes. There's several different types of these scattered around the world. They don't have big names over them, and they don't have hit point bars either, so they're a little bit more hard to spot at a distance, and it's easy to pass up them sometimes. You can overlook them easily, especially some of the smaller ones are hard to see. But whenever you walk over them, that big box shows up in the bottom right, so you know that you passed one. So that's it's an interesting bit of info, like right there. You might not have seen that item on the ground, but if you walk past it, that box shows up, you see it in your peripheral vision, head back towards it, and then hit the E button to pick it up. As you can see, it's a small purple mushroom that you can easily mistake or just totally overlook, especially if you come at it like this angle. It's kind of hidden by that little green piece of grass thing, so you might not necessarily see it. You could easily walk right over it and pass it up, except for the big box in the corner. So keep an eye out for that. Now you might say, what are these things used for? Well, for example, all these are used for crafting, but for example, the cobweb, like I said, in the cities you've got the crafting stations. You also have the refining stations. Cobweb is a raw material. You can take it to that refining station. I think it's called the loom or the spinning wheel or something like that. Anyway, you take it to that station and you can refine it down into silk thread. And then silk thread is the base material that you use to craft silk armor. Silk armor is the armor that mages wear. So, for example, if you're a mage, you especially want to keep on the lookout as you're adventuring around, keeping on the lookout for scrubs to pick up this kind of cobweb stuff. Now, there are various other types of resource nodes. For example, this one right here is called cotton plant, and works the same way. Boom. That was a bit loud, isn't it? Yep, and that dropped... drop the sound effects a bit. Okay, yeah, that dropped the cotton capsules. Cotton capsules are just like the cobweb. You take them to the refining station in the city, and you refine that down into cotton thread. Cotton thread is what you use to craft rogue armor. So, again, if you're a rogue, you especially want to be on the lookout for cotton plants. That's for sure. Now, there are a couple of other types of resource nodes that aren't necessarily used for the crafting of a class's armor. One of them is right here. It's called ginseng. This is a plant that drops an item. Derp. Ginseng root, of course. Ginseng root isn't used to make a class's armor like the other two I showed, but instead ginseng root makes ginseng soup. And the soup is a type of food. It is in fact a really, really good food, good quality food that you want to keep on the lookout for those items because, well, I'll do a whole episode on the food probably. Anyway, here's a bush. And here we go. Bush drops wood log. It's log, it's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, it's better than bad, it's good. And why is it good, you might ask? Well, you're going to find that down into some wood blocks that you can use to craft bows and stabs if you're a mage. So, or a bow, obviously, if you're a ranger. Now, bushes also have the chance of dropping plant fiber. Plant fiber is what you make ranger armor for, or rather, ranger armor with. So, if you're a ranger, you especially want to be on the lookout for the bushes because you get your weapon piece and you get your armor piece from the bushes. And if you're a mage, it's also useful because your staves are made with the wood. Anyway, Briefly though about the ginseng, like I said, it's a food. You may be asking, so what's food for? Well, food is one of the like I said, I'll do a whole episode on this, but briefly, food is one of the very few ways that you can get hit points back. Unlike some other games, if you're damaged and missing hit points, like if I was missing 50 hit points right now and I was only at 200 hit points, I would just be staying at 200 hit points. I would not be regening that. There's only a few ways to get your hit points back, one of which obviously is your health potions, which are very, very important, but those are to be conserved and used while you're in combat. If you're getting your butt whooped in combat and you're almost dead, you want to kind of run out behind a tree or something, start chugging a health potion and get your health back by using the potions. But if you're outside of combat and you're still damaged, say at the end of a battle, you've only got 50 hit points left, you don't want to use your health potion because of how important they are in combat. That's where food comes into play. Food will give you hit points back outside of combat. Now, finally, before we go, there's one last item, probably the most important item you want to keep on the lookout for. It is so, so very important because it is the primary ingredient for making those health potions. As I said in the last episode, the secondary ingredient for the health potions is what you can buy from the vendor, the potion miscellaneous vendor at the city, and that is the glass flask. But as well as the glass flask, you also need the primary ingredient, which is this flower right here. It's this one that looks like a heart-shaped flower with some green pedestals at the base of it. It can be a hard to differentiate thing at a distance, especially because you see these red squares that keep falling off these trees. Those are supposed to be leaves, and those are also pretty much the same color, so at a distance, differentiating the two colors can be a bit difficult, but you get the hang of it eventually because the leaf things are cubes, and this is a heart shape. So anyway, especially be on the lookout for these heart flowers. You want to loot as many of those as possible. They're just so exceedingly important. I will cover in a later episode once I move over to the city and get some flasks. I will show you how to craft it, because there is an intermediate step. I'll go more into detail later on about that. But in the meantime, as you're working your way to that city, pick up every single heart flower you can. You want several of them, because you need lots of hit point potions. You're just gonna run through a lot of them. That's what you need to look for as you're working your way towards the city. In the next episode, we are going to I'm going to go adventure a bit closer to the city and probably run into some monsters. I'm going to show you guys some of the tips and tricks to surviving combat. It can be pretty rough, especially early on in the game, to do combat. So I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, how to differentiate hostile and friendly mobs, how to differentiate how tough a monster is, so on and so forth, and I give you some tricks for the actual fighting of them and how to survive and succeed in combat in this game. So, I hope you did enjoy the episode and learn something, perhaps. If you found it useful, insightful, and enjoyed it, don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe for more. Until next time, though, this is Sukasa signing out. Have a good one.